you're needing. I would like to let you know that the Smoky Mountain ATD chapter is very proud to present Dr. Knowlton today. We realize this is a difficult time for many in our community, but our goal is to continue to provide professional development and networking opportunities. Please remember, we do rely on chapter memberships in order to fund these important events. If you are currently not a member, please visit our website to review member benefits and join today. And I will put the website up, but obviously you registered, so you already have that. Also, if you are seeking resources from National ATD, their website is td.org. Be sure to use the ATD Smoky Mountain Chapter chip code, which is 4080. If you are a member, that will give you member pricing and supports our chapter as well. Our next event will be held on May the 15th. We have turned that into a remote event, and the registration for that is open. So if you would please get yourself registered, and we look forward to seeing you again next month when we finish today. And with that, Dr. Dave, take it on.
Well, one more housekeeping issue real quick. Alan just sent a text asking if we were recording this event, and I used that as an opportunity to hit record. If you would like me to not record a board member, please say so, but I thought I would use Alan's prompt as an opportunity to record in case ATD wanted to use it. Does that seem okay with you, Karen?
That's great. That would be wonderful. Thank you.
Fantastic. Well, I am Dave Knowlton, and I am simply delighted to have this opportunity to speak with you today. And the topic we are going to be looking at is talent development to enhance organizational creativity. So this is not about developing your people's creativity for the sake of developing their creativity. This is ultimately about contributions to the organization that you serve as a talent development professional, as an instructional designer, trainer, whatever your role may be. Now, my next slide is fairly standard for most every presentation that I give. Here is really, yes, there are learning objectives. Yes, you will be asked, did I meet the objectives? I don't care, right? Here's what I want. When we finish an hour from now, I want you to be able to say to yourself, you know what? That was a good use of my time. Or if that wasn't a good use of my time, let me reach out to Dave further and help make some meaning out of this that I can actually use in my workplace. So I want this to be a good use of your time. The inevitable commercial, here are the ways, some ways you can reach out to me. Please do check out the podcast at www.learningvibespodcast.weebly.com. One more way to make sure this is useful for you. If you look in the bottom part of your screen, you will see a chat feature. Please feel free to use chat throughout this presentation as a back channel for my talk. Talk to each other, share ideas that come to you as I am talking. There will be some parts where we try some little activities, one of which I added less than an hour ago, so we'll see how that goes, to interact some, and there will be some even short check-ins where I stop and look at the chat, and Karen helps me facilitate that, and so help me help you make meaning out of what we're going to be doing together here for about the next 55 minutes. So why should you even care about creativity? Why? What's the relevance as you think about your organization here? And I contend, and the academic literature supports, that the further we get beyond the information age, the more that creativity will be essential to organizational success. In an earlier version of this slideshow, my next click would have put up here approximately 20 citations from the academic literature, from places like the Harvard Business Review, and even from Newsweek, of sources that support this statement. An essential factor for organizational success. But you know, I think you really don't need to look any further than ATD's new capability model, the 2020 capability model. One of their domains is organizational capability. And one of their subpoints to that domain is future readiness of the organization. And within at least one ATD position paper that I saw, under that heading of future readiness of organizations, it talks about the need for organizational creativity and innovation. We'd better care. We had better care. Let me give you a second to read this quote. Now, one thought you might have as you look at this quote is, wow, what an old quote. But I sure think Feist has already proven to be true. Can we think of organizations, and maybe you use the chat to do so, I would encourage you to share. Can we think of organizations, corporations in the last 10 years that were so married to what they did then, were so beholden to their product, their approach, their way, that they have fallen by the wayside? I have learned in presentations like this to never name examples. The last time I did so, I took some pot shots at FedEx in a meeting like this, only to find out later that the chief communications officer and the chief learning officer were sitting in the audience as I took pot shots at FedEx. So I dare not mention any, but I hope you will in chat. Those organizations that have not thought creatively, innovatively, and therefore have died as they moved on. Yes, Samantha, that's the first one I thought of. Absolutely, Jeff, thank you. And there are dozens of others. I hope you will share some of those too. Survival of your organization. I have even heard the coming age referred to as the age of creativity. We'd better care. It is essential to organizational survival. Yet, there's some real truths here. Management is completely ill-prepared to support creativity. I mean, think about what makes management management. They have in place their systems, their powers, their organizational approach, their priorities. And if we know anything about creativity, the great choreographer Twyla Tharp said that creativity is an act of rebellion. She's right. So management actually has an interest in not supporting creativity. Oh, sure, they say they want it, but I kind of like the way Upton Sinclair said it. Now, sexist language aside in Sinclair's approach, I think we find this to be true. My experiences suggest that the C-suite says to us, be more creative, be more innovative, we want change, go, go, go. But when they recognize that it's an act of defiance, that it undermines the existing power structures, they immediately come back and say, well, not so sure about this creativity stuff. And for goodness sakes, with all deference to any UT Knoxville faculty who may be in the room or any other faculty, for goodness sakes, don't wait on the likes of me to prepare college students and graduates to be creative. I mean, walk into most any university classroom, and what you find is it's 20 points for this and 19 points for that and 17.25 points for the other. And it had better be the professor's way. I mean, what's a university classroom about? It's about ritualistic compliance to a prefabricated list of outcomes and the same assignment that that faculty member has been using since 1962. Don't wait on the likes of me. So, what do we have here? We have a gap. Okay, even though this is an online event, didn't you just feel the tingle of the senses of all instructional designers who may be with us right now? We love our gaps, don't we? It's essential. We've got to have it. There's some disadvantages to having it and some problems with getting it. We have a gap. Oh, I thought the instructional designer joke would at least get me an LOL in the chat. Are we out there, people? So we have a gap. Now, the good news. Talent development, if designed well, can fill that gap. It can. Actually, what Ligon and colleagues said is that training can fill that gap. I have expanded it to talent development. So we have a gap, and given our expertise, we can solve this gap and fill this gap. Okay, how? Where to begin? As you start thinking about talent development interventions to make your people more creative so that they can better serve the organization, where do we begin? Two places. Place number one, we have to think beyond training. Now, what do I mean by that? That our talent development interventions to make people more creative have to go beyond training. Training is about changing the way employees perform to build a better widget. How do I? Is the question that training answers. And it's important. It's very important. I'm an instructional designer. I teach instructional design. I love training. But training is not enough. We must, in our organizations, get into the realm of shaping the way employees think. Not how do I build a better widget, but why do I build a better widget? And what's the best approach to get there? You see, training will increase profits. The evidence is clear. But if we want creativity, then we have to start shaping the way our employees think. So this may seem all very theoretical, and I promise I will get more practical, but practical point number one, a training intervention that purely teaches creative behavior is not enough. The worst thing you can do, by the way, is just tell people to go be more creative. And telling people to be creative is easy. Getting them to do it and to shape their thinking so that they see value in it is hard. Another quote for you. I love this quote. I'll let you read it. So we do have to change the way people work, strategies for working with information. But we also have to change their cognition, their thinking. Where to begin? Part two, it is a process orientation. One-off workshops where you bring people in for an hour and a half and you're going to teach them how to be creative in an hour and a half. It doesn't work. There must be a more long-term process approach to making your employees creative. I'll give you a second to read Sawyer's quote here. And really, in this quote, we see both of my where to begin points. Long periods of hard work. Thus, your talent development interventions to help employees be more creative, they must be both A, hard work, and B, process, long periods, bringing in an employee through a project that teaches them how to work with information so that the ideas are combined in their mind. One more quote for you. So again, we see both of my points. So this is not just me pontificating. This is based in the literature of how to boost creativity in organizations. Creative thought process. It's the only way. And you know, as I contemplate these two starting points of it's got to be about changing employee thinking and it's got to be about process, something occurs to me. This is what artists do. And I think we talent development professionals make a mistake to not look at artistic process if we are going to make our people more creative. And as I get more practical here, you're going to hear a lot from various artists. Wow, I've been doing a lot of talking. Could we do a quick check-in in chat here? I'm hoping for some quick typed thoughts, reaction, points of disagreement. I always welcome affirmations to my fragile professorial ego. Have I said anything worth hearing so far? I'd like to just give you a minute and a half to fill up the chat here, and as comments start coming in, I may respond to one or two of them. But let me just give you a minute to share some thoughts, please, in your chat. So far, I've got crickets. Yeah, Alan, great. The investment in traditional trucks. Emily, fantastic. Yeah, hey, you have a college student here from Emily saying, I'm sitting in a college classroom now, and we're not being adequately prepared to be creative. Alyssa is saying the same thing. Yeah, providing management a reason why, Susan, it's important. So some good comments here. Yeah, we have to teach people how to be creative. I like the way actor John Cleese said it. Creativity is a mode of operating. Some people believe, well, I'm just not creative. Well, no, it's not like having red hair or blue eyes. It's not that some people have it and others don't. It's that we can develop the habits and the mode of operating to be more creative ourselves and to help others be creative. Yes, somebody said, I've already lost it. Was it a Jeff who said that they're fighting these battles every day with the management? It's already gone off my screen. Thanks for the props, Paul. I'll take all the props from military men I can get. Thank you very much. So yeah, I'm glad to see some of the engagement here. I'm glad for some of the points, particularly from the college students, that I'm right, that they're not getting it outside your organization. Um, it is hard to allow creativity when providing functional systems training. Yes, it is, Susan. Yes, it is. So, one question is for the organization to move forward, what is the purpose of functional systems training? I mean, functional, it's one of those words like perfunctory. If I ever wanted to just preserve the status quo, I would make sure that what I'm doing is perfunctory and functional. So thank you for all the comments. I will give you another chance to check in here as we move forward. But let's get more practical. So I've said we've got to move people through a process. What process? How, as you're creating talent development interventions to make your people more creative, what type of processes do you take them through? And the truth is, it doesn't matter that much. It has to be well conceived. It has to be thought out. It has to be a good process. So we're going to think carefully about the process we bring our people through. Thanks for the ha, Susan. I'll take all the laughs I can get virtually. How we're going to bring people through a process. And look, there are hundreds of choices out there. I won't give you time to read this quote, but in the choreographer Twyla Tharp's brilliant book, The Creative Habit, I recommend that book strongly. She summarizes some of the approach of what's known in the literature as the genoplore process, helping people generate ideas, 3 prototypes of everything, by the way, not generate one idea, generate 5, at least 3. Retain those ideas, inspect those ideas, and then transform them. Some of you may be familiar with the design thinking process, taking your employees through a process of empathizing, and I will talk more about that in a minute, with key stakeholders, defining the problem to be solved, ideating, thinking about it, prototyping, testing, the classical model of creativity, preparing people through immersion in ideas, incubation. Yes, there are values in the long hot shower, the walk across town, letting ideas work in our unconsciousness. so that we have that aha moment, that eureka moment, where we find ourselves running down the streets naked in the middle of the night. Or maybe I just told you more about my life than I should have. And then verification and evaluating those ideas. The process, the exact process you take people through doesn't matter. The point is process oriented. Notice there's no reference here to Addy. For you instructional designers, please don't get me started on the evils of, well, what's your instructional design model? Well, here at Corporation X, we use Addy. You have said nothing. I used Addy in picking out this turtleneck and this sweater this morning. So a developed process, a well thought out process, a process orientation. Now, for the rest of this talk, I'm going to take you through what I call the 8 C's. And if we had more time, I would break them down a little further. But how do you get your people to conceptualize and contemplate, to collaborate toward creative outcomes, to then concretize and characterize? Yes, I was stretching to make them all fit my C's. And then to calculate the value of. Now that's 6 C's of the process that you can take people through. The other 2 C's are your role as the talent development professional, to counsel and critique. One of your board members, Elaine Smith, and I are doing some writing on the notion of talent development professionals as teacher, counselor, critic. And I think this idea of counseling and critiquing to bring people along creatively is what your role can be. So let me take you through some of this process in what time we have left with some practical examples. How do you get people to conceptualize and contemplate? First of all, in your talent development interventions, do not allow your people to wait for inspiration. A lack of inspiration is the biggest excuse in the world for a lack of productivity. Inspiration is for amateurs. My favorite music composer, Stephen Reich, said this: inspiration is for amateurs. Get people, as Reich says it, sitting yourself down and working. We don't conceptualize by waiting for inspiration. I like the way John Updike said it. I'm going to change his quote a little bit. Producing and then reproducing, getting the ideas out there, sitting down and working helps you figure out what it is you were trying to conceptualize. I like the way E.M. Forster said it, the great novelist. How do I know what I think until I see what I have to say? And I love the way Tennessee Williams said it. A writer keeps surprising himself. He doesn't know what he is saying until he sees it on the page. So as you're developing talent development interventions, I mean, these are 3 of the most creative people in history. They aren't just sitting around thinking, they are doing, they are producing. Producing is an act of discovery. I am a fan of journaling, by the way, a huge fan of journaling as a way of teaching yourself what it is you are trying to think about. I think one thing in your talent development interventions is to get your people, whether you're taking them through, so what do I even mean by the type of processes? Simulations of marketing campaigns, taking them through a design process, taking them through role plays that put them in various scenarios. These types of processes, first of all, you have to help people conceptualize their stakeholders, know their audience, right? And one type of conceptualized tool that I use, I actually stole this from a design thinker at IBM to get people conceptualizing creatively. My stakeholder, which is who, and by the way, not one, come up with 30. Have you really thought through all of the stakeholders out there you have? My stakeholders need a way to do what so that they can achieve what? So I think what you're doing with a tool like this, and sticky notes are your friend, by the way, commit things to sticky notes because it's so easy to throw them away when you recognize you don't have it right. Well, that didn't work. Now what? You've got to be prepared to fail and to try again and to prototype multiple ideas. But this empathy for your stakeholders. I'm on the board of directors at an arts center up here in the Midwest, right outside of St. Louis, Missouri, the Jacoby Arts Center. And I just took our board through a process of creating an empathy map of our patrons. What do our patrons say? But what are they thinking? And might that contradict what they actually say? And what do they do? But now, wait a minute, they say they want this, but then we offer that class, please give us a class in photography. But then we have one person sign up, even though 500 people said they wanted it. And how is all that different from what we think they feel? So processes like my client needs a way to do what, so that, like an empathy map, helps people start to creatively conceptualize what it is that you want them thinking about in this process. Okay, I added this activity an hour ago, and wow, you're a quiet audience. Stop that. So you have me very nervous about how this is going to go, but we're going to try it anyway. Maybe some of you know the scamper method. It is a great method of getting people to conceptualize and contemplate creatively. And we're going to do this really quickly. Don't censor yourself. There are no bad answers here. Put yourself out there and be prepared to fail. You are looking at a picture of a doctor's office waiting room. A very nice one. So maybe don't focus on this one. Think about doctor's office waiting rooms that you have sat in. And what we are going to do, we're going to think about how to make it better using the scamper technique. So I'm going to be asking you to add some things in chat. Let's start with the S of scamper. So don't hit send yet, but go ahead and put yourself out there. Everybody type the word substitute and then a colon. What is something that you normally find in a doctor's office waiting room where you could substitute something else for that thing to make a doctor's office waiting room better? Or what is something you know of in other environments that you could substitute out of that environment and into a doctor's office waiting room to make doctor's office waiting rooms better? Go ahead and fill up the chat real quick. Substitute colon softer lighting. Yeah, how about some others? Thank you, Susan. Recliners instead of chairs. Love it. Love it. We're substituting something from our living room. Yeah, more about chairs. A coffee area. Yep. Wi-Fi. Love it. Love it. Now, I sometimes spend 45 minutes just on a scamper activity with audiences, but let's go to the C of scamper. What things in a typical or what processes or processes combined with things or people could we combine that you typically find in a doctor's office waiting room? Go ahead and type combine : to make a doctor's office waiting room a better and more productive experience. What are some things we could combine? I'll give you a second. Combine : give me 3 or 4. There are 20 of you, and I've got 3 people participating. One thing I thought of, combine TV with channels that offer helpful medical tips. Okay, yeah. Combine the pharmacy. Oh, Alan, brilliant. Combine the pharmacy straight into the waiting room. Brilliant. How about adapt? You're getting the idea here. So I'm going to skip forward. Combine medical forms you're required to fill out with iPads. Oh, love it. Adapt. We could do the same thing. How about maximize or minimize, making something bigger or smaller? I recognize I am skipping over some answers. Sorry that I'm not reading them all. Adapt, we could adapt Wi-Fi technologies. How about something we could make bigger or we could make smaller in a doctor's office waiting room? Minimize wait times. Yeah, the trick is how. I get it. Let's go to the P of scamper. Is there something we could put to other uses? Yeah, adapting chairs further apart. Love it. Thank you, Karen. Something in a doctor's office waiting room we could put to other uses. Somebody give me a put and an answer for that. One thing I always thought about in terms of combining, or maybe it's adapting. I would like to adapt the chairs, the seating, into a carousel so that when they call you up front to give your insurance card or whatever, they just spin you around and you get right up there to the front desk, right? Put an alcove for well patients. Oh, love it, Elaine. Love it, love it, love it. Okay. Are there things we could eliminate? Are there things we could rearrange and reorder? You get the idea. When we want people to conceptualize and contemplate, we've got to get them thinking and doing to illustrate their thought. Now, as usual, I am getting too long-winded, but I am going to stick to my script for collaboration because it's really important. Check out this quote, please. We've got to build collaboration into our training interventions, our talent development interventions. I'll let you read. If we want people to be creative, if we want our talent development interventions to make people more creative, they have to be talking to people in the organization and interacting with people in the organization that they don't normally interact with. There is a ton in the creativity literature on weak networks, not interacting with the people you interact with every day, but interacting with in weak networks. If we want people to better understand the creative needs of the organization, we have to foster collaborations that blow up people's bubbles. We're all in a bubble at work. How do we blow those up? Now, what do I mean by that? Have people across regions talking to each other? Well, for a national organization, I used to work for Helena Chemical Company. And we would regularly, well, I was in the Mid-South division, we would regularly have conference calls with the California division, the Northeast division. Well, how are you all handling these issues up there? By organizational function. If you want to see nervous breakdowns happen within your organizations, have your R&D people collaborate with your accountants. Oh, it's so much fun to watch because, people in very different parts of the organization with very different concerns and very different mindsets blowing up the bubbles. Upper management is beholden to norms. Insist that upper management collaborate with the lowest people and listen to the lowest people on the totem pole. An insensitive metaphor from me, my apologies. But you get the idea. Cross-functional teams, yep, it's essential. So we've got to get people collaborating. Now, there's a challenge for talent development. Here is what all the literature says. What do you do? I mean, if you want people to be creative, you have to give them alone time and the space to be and the space to create. And people who tend to be the most creative tend to also be introverted, if not downright antisocial. There are plenty of studies that show that. Yet you need collaboration to create. So what do? We know people like this, right? We've seen people like this. So what do? You teach collaboration skills. And if I hadn't gotten so long-winded, I would give you a chance, and maybe some of you do it anyway. I may not wait on you. What are some essential collaborative skills that people are not good at that we need to teach? Fill up the chat with some of that. What if you had to do some interventions on teaching collaboration skills? Where would you start? Yeah, listening is always a big one. It's essential. Responding appropriately. Yes, Jeff. Yeah, so listening to hear and then responding appropriately. Teamwork games. Yeah, it's a good way. The literature is clear, by the way. I often have talent development professionals or management say, we don't have time for that. We don't have time to stop and teach collaboration skills. The literature is very clear. You will get a return on your investment in terms of greater quality of ideas such that it outweighs the costs. I say in terms of teaching going back to my idea of listen to the artists, teach the rules of improvisation. The great comedy troupe in Chicago, Second City, now has a business division. I think it's called Second City Business. And they use the rules of improvisation, teaching people how to plus ideas. Yes, and Pixar Films uses it the best. This script isn't working. How do we plus it? How do we yes and it? Teaching people how to make their partner look good. How to frame interactions through stories that challenge thinking. Yes, Jeff. Yes, anding is about challenging people's thinking and acknowledging that it's challenging thinking. Listening deeply and involving everyone. How do your talent development interventions get people to do 75% of the work as individuals so that you have Meaningful collaboration. One strategy for you, I often will get people to collaborate silently. I will put a focusing question in the center of a whiteboard. How can we better get the corporate office to understand the needs of warehouse managers? How can we better hone our marketing strategy? I will write that in the center of the whiteboard, give everybody a marker, and then create a system of rotation where they come on different sides of the whiteboard at the same time and add ideas. They are collaborating without talking. And then when you step back, you see the holistic, creative picture of the ideas. Okay, we are quickly running out of time here. This is what we've talked about so far. And because I have gotten long-winded, this is what we have not yet gotten to. I think what I would like to do in the next 3 or 4 minutes is give you enough information that you can begin improving off of concretizing, characterizing, calculating, and then maybe we'll have 5 or 6 minutes for your questions or comments in the board. I see that Elaine has put in the chat this idea of when you're collaborating, what if, why not? That's exactly right for concretizing the idea, solidifying it, asking probing questions. What if? Why does it have to be that way? 3 of my favorites. If you had a magic wand, what would you change about this idea? If you were a fly on the ceiling, what would strike you as unusual about this thing we have come up with through contemplating, conceptualizing, and collaborating? So now how do we start to make it even more concrete? If you embodied the storm of experience that this idea gave us, what is it that you would weather? There's a great design thinking technique called body storming, where you actually walk through whatever it is you're designing. If you're designing a doctor's office waiting room, go sit in that waiting room. I was watching a documentary on comedians the other night, and several of them talked about they would go find the furthest away and worst seat in the audience, and they would just go sit in it and observe the stage and how they could see the stage. Body storming. Take yourself through the experience to begin to concretize that experience. And finally, calculating. Talent development professionals, as you teach people how to be creative, you must help them calculate the results. And I don't mean quantitatively, I mean qualitatively. And I won't give you time to read this quote, but one thing we know that talent development professionals have to do is that we have to train people in how to construct feedback, how to deliver that feedback, and how to interpret that feedback. We cannot just assume that people know how to do this. Yet feedback is essential. How to construct feedback with a high dose of developmental orientation. How to judge the quality of an idea without being judgmental. So hard to do. Not judge to be judgmental, but judge to help things move forward. And how to help people interpret feedback. You have to teach these things. One final thing I will say about feedback. In fact, I will give you a second to read this quote. It's from the newest edition of the Harvard Business Review. Check this quote out. If your superiors at your organization are not listening to you, they do not get it. I want to say that again. If your superiors at your organization are not listening to you and how they should improve, they're missing the boat. Wow, professors can spew a lot of information and talk unceasingly, can't they? Well, finally, then we have to get that feedback on paper. What worked? What doesn't work? What were the new ideas that came out of the feedback? What could be improved? And now start playing with that to go all the way back to the beginning of the process and conceptualize, collaborate, concretize, and calculate again. We have about 5 minutes, maybe even 8 or 9 minutes. Questions, comments, and I invite you, even in the chat, you could type a question, a comment, a disagreement, whatever it may be, and I'll respond to those. If you'd rather talk, there is a hand raising icon somewhere, and I think if you raise your hand, it'll pop up, and I'll let you unmute your microphone and share your comment or question. But let's just use the last 9 minutes together to hear more from you than from me. Thoughts, reactions, ideas of your own, disagreements, new things you're leaving here with, all is fair game. Yeah, Karen, thank you. Feel free to unmute yourself and talk to us.
So folks, I'm not finding the participant question answer down below. So let's put some things in chat and let Dr. Dave know how much we appreciate what we've learned from him today. Any questions that you have for him?
I will always take kudos. I also thrive on alternative points of views and disagreements. So feel free to share those as well.
Quiet group.
My professor ego will go away quite bruised. I have inspired nothing. What am I good for then? Yep.
There you go.
Yeah, Jackson. Ego. There's all sorts of research on this. The great researcher on creativity, Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, said that people who are creative exhibit polarities. They are simultaneously the most egotistical people you will ever meet and the most humble. So ego in creative work both gets in the way and helps you. And knowing when to set that aside. Thanks, Jackson. Other thoughts, comments, questions? As I tell my students, we have 5 minutes and I am going to use them.
Well, as we're waiting for some more comments to come in, just a couple reminders. For those of you that are members of ATD Smoky Mountain Chapter, this slide deck and information will be loaded onto our website so that you can access it. And also remember that being able to put these types of information out there to help you, we really need you to join as a member. That would help us greatly so we can continue doing this.
And I have put on the screen multiple ways to reach out to me as well.
At the close of our meeting today, you'll be sent a short survey to let us know what you think, how we can improve it. I know that we're all kind of in an odd situation with the world events, but we will be hosting our May event on May the 15th. It will also be a remote event, and that registration is open, and we are not charging for that. So let your friends know. Let's enjoy getting together remotely, even though we can't see you in person.
Fantastic. Well, everyone on the ATD board, thank you so much for the opportunity. I hope I have provided useful information to all of you, and go out there and be creative.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Dave. We really appreciate it. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye. Thanks, AJ and Susan and others who are offering the thank yous. Thanks, Jackson. Thanks, Rudy. Hope it was a good use of your time. Thanks, Paul.
Looks like we're down to just our board members and one other person. So we truly do appreciate everything that you've done to help support our chapter. And we're going to be meeting and talking about other things that we can offer to our members. And
well, please don't hesitate to reach out to me if you see any potential role for me to play in that. I enjoy this type of thing and would be happy to talk to any and all of you.
So we have Elaine, Alan, AJ, and Paul. Oh, Paul's still on. AJ's popped off.